Are you putting a hat on a hat? Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Cornwell with Get Taped here in Atlanta, Georgia, one of Atlanta's original audition taping services, which I'm at right now, and which I co-own with my amazingly talented, beautiful wife and best friend, Brooke. And now on to our topic, a hat on a hat. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Really wish that was an elephant. That would have made this joke so much better. But seriously, what's the deal with this? Well, I'm glad you asked. This video has a couple lessons built into it. I'm going to start with sort of the secondary lesson first and then get to the main point. We have all experienced at one time or another this. Well, not exactly this. I've never really seen someone wear a hat on a hat in a literal sense. But we've all encountered someone in our life, whether it's in the context of acting or just in real life, who is wearing something and you just wonder if they know. And while the old mustard on your face concept is included in this, when someone has something on their face or lint on their shirt or their zippers down, I'm actually talking about personality traits for this video. Like when you meet someone for the first time and then you whisper to your friend, do they know how loud they are? Or do they know how obnoxious they are? Or do they know how quirky they are? Now, when that person does verbally, publicly accept that trait about themselves, they say it out loud in the context of the conversation, we call that being charismatic. Because if I preface a conversation with you with, hey, like my two hats, then you don't have to agree with my wardrobe choice or my style, but at least you know that I know. And it helps to relieve some tension that might have existed during the conversation, because the whole time you'd be wondering, does he know that he's wearing a hat on a hat? It's out in the open, no more tension. And for actors, this concept is huge. When you walk into an audition room or when you show up on that self-tape, you're wearing certain qualities. And if you aren't aware of what those qualities are, well, then the hat on the hat syndrome could happen to you. See, because the decision maker, heck, anybody on this earth will notice those things that you're wearing. And if they sense that you don't really know that you're wearing them, then that's what creates that tension. That's what creates a lean away moment, which is the death of an actor's performance. You never want the audience leaning away. That is a disconnection. That means they're no longer interested. They're already thinking about what they're going to have for lunch. But if they sense that you're owning that quality about yourself, that you're comfortable, nay, confident in that quality, then they lean in. And that is what we're all after in this life. Every connection we make, whether it's a social connection or a professional connection, we're hoping that the other person, the audience, leans in. So that's the first aspect of this ridiculous metaphor, being aware of everything we carry into a room. Physically, it's like checking your teeth and your hair and your zipper before you walk into that big high-stakes interview or audition or first date, etc. But in regards to your personality, it's much tougher to know what is on full display to that audience. So I won't go into my full pitch in this video, but we cover this concept in great detail in our Sam Christensen workshop, which I'm currently in the middle of, which is why I'm taping this at our studio instead of at home. This is actually day 2 of our workshop. So I'll link that in the show notes below if you want to learn more. So instead of doing my full pitch on the Sam Christensen workshop, I want to talk about the other way this metaphor is relevant to actors, and that's in the performance itself. Sometimes we intentionally put a hat on a hat, maybe not knowing what the result will be. Let me explain. Let's say that the character breakdown for an audition that I have says that the character needs to be intimidating, and I think, ooh, I can be intimidating. I've been told that I'm intimidating throughout my life. Then the danger is that I'll go too far with that behavior. In other words, just reminding myself, just recalling the fact that I've been told that I'm intimidating is like putting on the first hat. But if I then try to layer on intimidation because I really want to show the casting director that I can be intimidating, then it's like putting on the second hat. And in this case, I'm putting on 2 of the same hat, which is even more ridiculous because at least when I had 2 different hats on, you think, oh, he's trying to make some sort of weird fashion statement. But now it's just too much. It's ridiculous in every sense to be putting two of the same hat on at the same time. And in the case of this particular quality of intimidation, by putting a hat on a hat, one of a couple things is probably going to happen. Either I go so far into intimidation that it sort of looks comical, and it actually works against what I'm trying to achieve. And so if I walk into the scene and I've puffed my chest and I've dipped my chin and I've furrowed my eyebrows because I'm trying to be intimidating, and I even try to find some sort of lower register to my voice, and I'm doing this thing and I'm trying to really intimidate you, it becomes comical because I have put a hat on a hat and it's too much. On the flip side, if I actually lean so far into it in a realistic way, and especially if this is an in-person audition, I might legitimately scare the people in the room in a way that they don't want to work with me. They might just say, thanks, Matt, that's great. Have a nice day. Whereas with the comical effect, if they're laughing internally at my hat on a hat, then I will likely get a note, which is, that was great, Matt. Do less. And many people in this case don't understand. They don't understand how to take that one hat off. They feel like, well, I need to show you this. This is what the character is saying. And they feel like if I take the hat off, then I'm not doing anything anymore. And that is exactly the point. Everyone who has ever sat on the other side of the camera will tell you, yes, that is why I called you in. It's because you don't have to put a hat on a hat. You don't have to show me that quality. It's already innately in you. That is why you were called in the first place. So when you put that second hat on in an effort to show them you can do it, it's just too much. And it might end up being comical when you're not trying to be. See, I've been told my whole life that on a first impression, some people are intimidated by me. And I can say with certainty that 100% of those times, I was not trying to be intimidating. So if I can just be intimidating by sitting here quietly thinking about the Roman Empire, then you can understand how if I try to be intimidating, it quickly will become too much. And this is true for you and for every actor out there who has these qualities that are innately in you, that have been amplified in you more than in me. And when you're called to do that behavior, when it is in the character breakdown, you get excited because you want to prove that you can do this. And it's a conundrum because in those cases, what you should do is almost nothing at all. Just remind yourself that you are that thing, and that is equivalent to putting on that hat, showcasing that thing. Any extra work, any amplification, any digging deeper to really show that you can do it is going to be like putting on that second hat. Don't do it. And yet, so many actors will rebel against this advice because they feel like they still need to show the behavior. Either they just don't understand how that behavior radiates from them, or they've just not done the sort of deep dive work we do in the Sam Christensen workshop, or you just think acting needs to be hard always. I mean, it is, right? Personally, I've spent over 10,000 hours in the classroom, which amounts to tens of thousands of dollars. I don't even want to do the math to find out how much I've invested in this career. But because of all of that money that I have put into the career, confirmation bias will lead me to believe that therefore it has to be hard. Because if it's not hard, then I shouldn't have needed to spend all that money. I mean, seriously, there must be some sort of intense, hard process to achieve a good performance, right? Right? Anyone? Brooke? Did I waste all that money? Well, maybe, maybe not. See, I look at an actor's training like a cyclical journey. You're trying to find a path back to that inner child, the version of you who did not judge themselves, the one who was able to play without any prep. Every moment of that childhood was a thin space between reality and imagination. You were able to cross that boundary seamlessly, instantly, with no prep beforehand and no judgment afterward. Kids don't lay in bed at night thinking how well they played that day. Gosh, I think I could have added an extra imaginary friend today. Man, I failed at imagining. No, they don't do that. And so why do we spend so much time as adults, as actors, judging ourselves? And come on now, it is play. You don't have to make it more complicated than that. But that's a very nuanced topic for a different video. The overall point here is you must establish a set of tools and protocols to keep yourself in check. And make sure you're not putting a hat on a hat. That might mean getting yourself into a class, hiring a private coach, or taking a workshop like the Sam Christensen process. The latter will empower you to be more objective about yourself and your own performances. But in lieu of that, if you haven't done that type of work, then you need someone in your life who is a trusted, objective observer who will call you out when you have a hat on a hat. So self-taping at home with a virtual reader, or heck, no reader at all because you've just recorded the reader's lines and are playing them back to yourself, is not a protocol I would suggest as your default. It's just not going to give you enough feedback. Plus, as I talked about in a previous video, the audition is not the time to figure this out. You need a low-stakes environment like a class or a coaching session to investigate this, to get curious about this, to figure this stuff out. Now, as I wrap up this video, it occurs to me there's a nuance that might get lost in the shuffle if I'm not careful. And that is, what is the difference between a hat on a hat and simply going for it in an audition? Sometimes as we do our script analysis and our character analysis, we're tempted to go pretty far with the character, to go deeper, but maybe we're a little hesitant to do that, and so we hold back, especially if you're afraid of this concept of a hat on a hat. But that's not necessarily the same thing as a hat on a hat. In fact, a lot of casting directors and other decision makers would love to see you go for it, to go as far as you can into that emotion, to raise the stakes more, because those decision makers know that they can trust you then to dial that back. If the stakes were too high, then the director can simply say, Matt, that was great. I love that. But see what happens if you dial back that fill in the blank, or you lower the stakes a little bit. It's so much easier for them to trust that you can do that you can maybe pull back some of those choices, than it is for them to trust that you can go further with it. So it becomes this very subtle difference between putting a hat on a hat where your behavior suddenly looks inauthentic. It looks like a caricature of yourself versus doing that work, doing that prep, doing that character analysis, and really going for it, really digging deep into your own humanity and finding that authentic corner of your own personality where you have experienced that emotion to that extreme, or you have experienced that situation in some similar way. And so you take it to the nth degree and it still feels authentic. And that is not putting a hat on a hat. That is going for it. Those are those Emmy-winning and Oscar-winning performances. And again, the hat on a hat is just when you are unaware of your own humanity. You're unaware of how much certain qualities radiate from you. And because you're not aware of that, you double down on them, thus it looking like a caricature or inauthentic. So again, don't be afraid to raise the stakes or go deeper with your point of view or your tactics, etc. But for each of those choices, just make sure you're calibrated to your most authentic self, and that you're not putting a hat on a hat, or worse, a hat on a hat on a hat. I've seen it happen. I've probably done it. Anyways, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on set.